He still remembers the exact moment when the thought became unbearable. It wasn't when the bills piled up or when his bank balance disappointed him again. It was when he realized that years of effort had passed and his life still felt paused, as if time had moved forward for everyone else while he remained stuck in the same financial place, repeating the same months with different dates. He wasn't lazy, reckless, or irresponsible. He worked, showed up, followed rules, avoided obvious mistakes. Yet progress never stayed. Money came and went. Motivation rose and collapsed, and every small gain dissolved before it could grow into something meaningful. What hurt the most wasn't the lack of money, but the quiet fear that nothing in his life was compounding. At night, alone with his phone, he scrolled through other people's lives: promotions, investments, freedom, confidence. He told himself he wasn't comparing, just observing. But his chest tightened every time. It felt like everyone else was building momentum while he was simply surviving, moving, but not advancing. That's when a disturbing realization surfaced, not as advice or motivation, but as a heavy inner sentence that refused to leave him. If nothing is growing, something is leaking. He didn't know exactly what was leaking yet, but he knew it wasn't just money. His relationship with money was built on urgency. When stress rose, spending followed. When anxiety appeared, avoidance took over. He delayed planning because planning forced responsibility, and responsibility felt heavy when the future felt uncertain. Every decision was emotional, even the ones he justified as logical. He wasn't reckless. He was reactive. And reaction never compounds. He believed wealth came from intensity, from pushing harder, earning more, finding the perfect strategy. But intensity exhausted him. It never stayed long enough to build anything real. What he didn't understand yet was that money doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to rhythm. At work, frustration grew quietly. He did what was expected, sometimes more, yet the reward always felt delayed and uncertain. At home, comfort became his escape. Small purchases, distractions, temporary relief. Not because he didn't care about the future, but because the present felt overwhelming. Unpaid bills sat unopened, not out of neglect, but because looking at them forced him to confront responsibility. For a long time, he told himself that one big change would fix everything. A raise, a better job, a breakthrough. There was no dramatic moment, no sudden discipline, just discomfort. One evening, exhausted from feeling behind, he forced himself to sit down and look at his finances, not to optimize. It was painful, not because the numbers were shocking, but because they were honest. That night, another realization formed, quieter, heavier than the first. Compounding doesn't reward ambition. It rewards repetition. He finally understood that his problem wasn't lack of effort, but lack of consistency. Every promise he made to himself collapsed under emotion. Every future plan was betrayed by his present self. So he changed one thing. Every single week, no matter how tired, bored, or discouraged he felt, he showed up for his finances. Not to chase growth, not to feel productive, just to build familiarity. Sometimes it took 10 minutes, sometimes less. Look, record, reflect, close, no emotion, no drama. At first, nothing changed. No visible progress, no excitement, but something subtle began happening. Money stopped being emotional and became factual. Without emotion, fear weakened. Without fear, impulse lost power. He didn't realize that this boring habit was already shaping his financial identity. Weeks passed, then months. The habit stayed dull, predictable, almost invisible. No dopamine, no praise, just repetition. And repetition began to do what motivation never could. It trained who he was becoming. He stopped asking, "Can I afford this right now?" and started asking, "Is this aligned with the person I'm training myself to be?" That pause changed everything. Spending slowed. Regret disappeared. Saving became automatic, not heroic. Not because he had more money, but because he trusted himself more. Let's pause the story briefly. If you're recognizing your own patterns in this, the urgency, the avoidance, the emotional spending, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Not as a favor, but as a quiet commitment to long-term thinking. Now back to him. As consistency settled in, calm replaced anxiety. Money stopped feeling like a threat. The future stopped feeling like an enemy. He still wanted more, but he no longer needed relief. He automated what he could, simplified decisions, and removed situations that triggered emotional reactions. When income increased, savings moved first. When temptation appeared, he waited, just long enough for emotion to fade. That delay was the habit. And that habit compounded, not just money, but self-respect. He eventually understood something most people never slow down enough to see. The habit that built his wealth wasn't saving, investing, or budgeting. It was showing up consistently, even when nothing seemed to be happening. That's where compounding actually begins. If this story shifted how you think about money, discipline, or identity, you're invited, calmly, to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and explore the psychological materials mentioned in the description and comments as a way to deepen this mindset. Because the moment he stopped chasing results and started training consistency, he didn't just build wealth. He changed who he was becoming.